And welcome to the daily space weather. We've got the 171 angstroms plus colorized magnetogram for you here. We've got new sunspots growing in the northern hemisphere. Likelihood of solar flares goes up a bit. And we've got a coronal mass ejection happening as we record the video. So check it out. Welcome to space. Welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Let's do it. Here's a colorized magnetogram, and you can see this sunspot here growing and a new sunspot forming right over here in the northwestern limb. And a new active region also rising down here in the southeast. So we'll see an increase here in the radio flux, an increase in the sunspot number, and a higher likelihood of solar flares as the day progresses. And again, there is a coronal mass ejection propagating as we record the video. We'll get to it. First, volcanoes. Here's the rundown. Shivaluch is probably erupting, but volcanic ash not visible on satellite imagery. Don't pole vault the caldera. Sakurajima, flight level 070 over Kyushu, Japan. Mount Ibu exploding. 8,000-foot ash plume from Mount Ibu. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 200. It's a 20,000-foot ash plume over central Mexico. Headed down to Guatemala, 15,000-foot ash plume over Fuego as it explodes. Now down to Colombia, 20,000-foot ash plume from Nevado del Ruiz, flight level 200. It's exploding. And to Ecuador, we see Revenador exploding, flight level 150. Sabancaya, flight level 250. As Sabancaya explodes, 25,000-foot ash plume over Peru. And let's look at earthquakes. So the last 2 days have been quite calm here. Last 24 also quite calm. This is a 90-day bar graph, by the way. Only 2 7+ magnitude quakes over the past 90 days. And the largest quake of the past 24 hours was only a 5.1, I think. There was a 5.0 there north of New Zealand there, adjacent to the Kermadec Trench, in between New Zealand and Tonga. So just scrolling up the list here, let us know if we missed anything interesting. Let us know in the comments. Oh, all right, the largest quake of the past 24 was a 5.4 in the South Sandwich Islands region there, near a triplate boundary between the South Atlantic, the South Pacific, and the Antarctican plates. There was also a 5.2 in southern Mexico there. So quite calm here over the past 24 hours in terms of seismic activity. And let's get back to space. So here's the ionized helium view, 304 angstroms. And that's the last 24 hours. And this filament up here, this prominence, that is the spot of the latest coronal mass ejection. So that's actually in the process of ejecting as we stream this video live. And here's a close-up of it for the past 24 hours. Here you'll see part of this propagation here. As that prominence forms and begins to erupt. The radio flux has come up to 115 solar flux units, and I would expect this to increase more. We've got quite a lot of sunspots on the earthly side of the solar disk at the moment. There's the 1-year chart of the radio flux. It's this black line here. And for you new viewers, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is directly proportional to sunspot number. It's the most, besides sunspot number, it's the most definitive feature of solar activity, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. No solar storms here or geomagnetic unrest forecasted by NOAA over the next 3 days. This may change if that coronal mass ejection is earthly directed. I would suspect it's not going to be because it's so far up in the northeastern limb. But that's the current NOAA forecast there via the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. Now Earth's magnetic moment from space. And this is the last 4 hours. It looks like the coronal hole high-speed stream is subsiding here slowly. We've seen a slight decrease in the plasma temperature, the solar wind density, and speed over the past 24. We'll get to it momentarily. Again, this is the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. The scale depicted here is magnetohydrodynamic pressure, nanopascals. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground for the past 4 hours. The scale depicted here is nanotesla magnetic flux density. And again, things are calming down here as far as solar wind speed and plasma temperature. An indication that we're seeing a subsiding of the coronal hole high-speed stream. We'll show you more magnetic data here momentarily. Here's some geomagnetic data for you. The current KP index, the planetary K index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, is a KP2. Geomagnetic calm conditions. We did see a brief 6-hour period here of geomagnetic unrest late in the day yesterday. So looking at the real-time solar wind, you can see here this somewhat subsiding of the coronal hole high-speed stream there. Plasma temperature looks like it's dropping off. Got some funky-looking data there at the end. Current conditions are, well, we'll say 545 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed. Solar wind density about 6.5 protons per cubic centimeter. We do also see the BT-BZ shifting here. So that still is a heightened solar wind speed, and if we see a strong signal there, that red line, if that stays negative for an extended period, we could see some increases in the KP index. And Earth has snapped into a south pole current sheet. There are the GOES magnetometer readings. And we can somewhat expect some smoother GOES magnetometer readings over the next day or two here. And here you'll see Earth entering the South Pole current sheet. That's our top view ecliptic plane field plot. Earth recently entered into South Pole oriented plasma there, shown in red. North Pole current sheet there, headed out toward and beyond stereo B, which is this little plus sign you see here. That's stereo B. This is stereo A. And here's our line of sight plot. We've got some coronal holes rotating in. We'll get to the coronal holes in a moment. First, let's pause for station identification. Hey, thanks for leaving a comment, Tinman1057. Good morning to you as well. Thanks to our new subscribers. If you're new to the channel, please press like and subscribe. Tell your friends and foes about us as we present the most detailed imagery in the world of the closest star and the most in-depth space weather video you'll find anywhere. The reason that we study space weather so in-depth, folks, and the sun so in-depth is because back in the mid-90s when I took college astronomy, I realized that there was a hole in cosmology. Not a black hole, a hole in cosmology via the understanding of the sun. Why? Well, it's because I don't think the sun is well understood, and I think there are some problems with the standard concordance model of stellar evolution. The concordance model of stellar evolution may be completely incorrect about what stars are made of, and the, quote, evolution, end quote, of stars. There are a lot of theories out there about what stars do, how stars are born, and how stars die that appear to be not backed up by observations. And so anyway, the reason I study the sun is because of cosmology. I'm interested in the implications to what's going on in other galaxies and the implications of how solar systems form and how planets form and so on. Follow us on Twitter if you like. Twitter.com/smashomash. You'll see content no place else. You'll see content that's depicted no place else when you follow on Twitter. And we're also on Twitch, twitch.tv/smashomash. Today's featured product is the Galactic Federation Special Forces. I'm wearing it. And it's a message of freedom and liberty. It's one of our favorite designs ever. And I would say to you, Universum Liberate. Because if you want to freak people out and make them believe that you're in the Illuminati, start speaking Latin. They'll be very frightened of you, and maybe that's a good thing. Machiavelli stated, "It's better to be feared than loved." So in any case, Universum Liberate. The symbolism depicts the Milky Way galaxy. The key depicts signal strength and security. And the lightning bolt represents instantaneous galactic scale reach. That's what you need if you're the Galactic Federation Special Forces. To quote Geddy Lee, and I believe the lyrics were written by Neil Peart, if I could wave my magic wand, I'd set everybody free. You can find links on the homepage as well as below this video to the merch shop and our Redbubble shop. Links are going to list the products in order of best selling. If you want to support the channel via becoming a member of the Smash Team, do so at smashomash.com/SmashTeam. Join at the gold or silver level. And by the way, there is a credit crawl coming back. We used to use a credit crawl for our patrons. We're going to bring it back as we still have people that support us via Patreon. So we're going to show a credit crawl again. So make sure you respond to our posts about that. And we will put your name or whatever name you'd like, if you'd like a pseudonym or whatever, depicted in our credit crawl. We will start showing that again soon. Thanks to our gold and silver Smash Team members, patrons, etc. Now we've been talking about, yesterday we talked about virtual veterinarians on our SureMed benefits page. Vetster. One of the benefits of just a base SureMed membership is access to virtual veterinarians. What about the Health Advocate Solutions? They can help you find doctors and dentists and so on. They can also help consolidate your bills. They can help you perhaps save some cash on your bills. Untangle medical claims and insurance claims. Also clarify benefits, all kinds of things associated with the Health Advocate Solutions. One of the features of the base SureMed membership. It's fantastic. And if you do a Premier membership, you also get accident and critical illness insurance as added benefits there of your association with the American Better Health Organization. Premier membership is $35 a month, depending on your benefit level. So check it out. You can find links on the homepage at smashomash.com, and welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Times are getting interesting. Have you noticed the new CDC guidance? Well, we put up a tweet about that last night. Yeah, there's some new CDC guidance. I won't mention it because this video will eventually be on YouTube. Anyway, once again, you can visit our links on the homepage. Don't forget to check out the forum, the Smasho merch shop, and smashomash.com/SmashTeam. Gold and silver members do receive additional information. Now let's get to Coronal Holes. And here's some more Gong 2 data. We've got some well-defined South Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in. And the migration of the south solar polar field is a little bit ahead of the north. You can see these well-defined coronal holes here. These are all South Pole-oriented. Interestingly enough, these are North Pole-oriented, so the North Pole is well into its migration process here, but we've got a lot of it still oriented up here at the North Heliographic region. So these are, again, these are South Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in. And those are trans-equatorial, so we can expect a coronal hole high-speed stream from those in several days. We'll cover it. Next, move it is sunspots. And here at the Smash News Network, Lee's Busted Name and News, we like to cite facts about sunspots. And we've got some more. So this area up here, this will get named today. It's magnetically complex. It's a beta-gamma class sunspot group. Sunspot 3076 up here has gained in complexity as well. And there may be a new sunspot rising down here in the southeast. We'll get to it later in the video. First, some imagery. This is the last 24 in the SDO continuum. And let's get a little closer to show a little more detail, since we've got new groups forming in the northern hemisphere. So this group here, this is quite magnetically complex. New group forming in the south as well, right down here. That's also beta-gamma class. This is also beta-gamma class. And this new group up here in the northwest. also a beta gamma class. That greatly increases the likelihood of solar flares. And let's go to the magnetogram. So there's the magnetogram imagery also. Once again, that is the last 24 hours from SDO. Likelihood of additional coronal mass ejections also quite high. There are a lot of filaments. We'll get to that also. The X-ray flux here has been underperforming. We've only seen a minor C-class intensification over the past 24 hours. It was a C1.1. And that other one was only a B9.8. So underperforming in terms of X-rays. 94 angstroms is a good wavelength to view X-rays through. It looks like I think the C-class intensification was from this sunspot up here. Let's let that play through one more time. And let's move on. There's still plenty of stuff to cover, like the no relativistic particles showing up from any of those minor solar flares. And here's your star chart. We'd like our viewers to be oriented to facts, and preferably turned away from propaganda. Excuse me. And of course there's certainly plenty of propaganda on YouTube. Propaganda, nonsense, fraud, and just generally insane people making insane claims. Extraordinary claims without any extraordinary evidence to back them up. But this is what's going on above our head in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. As the Moon and Saturn set, you've also got Jupiter, Mars, and Venus out there on the ecliptic. Next, our solar system forecast. This is where heavenly bodies are at the moment. We'll advance this 1 week. We hope you enjoyed full moon. And there's where things will be in a week. It's the transition from a gibbous waning to a crescent waning. Next, some coronagraph imagery. And we've got some missing data here on some of the instruments. This is the imagery from yesterday, August 11th. And we'll also show the imagery from today so far. And again, there is a coronal mass ejection propagating as we make the video, so let's get to that. It's not going to show up on the stereo A or Soho Lasco C3 yet, but we can see it propagating on, oh, and there's missing data here on the stereo A coronagraph. That's why we paused it here. We've got about 10 hours of missing data there, 10 and a half hours. You can see the time and date stamps down here. Going from 2053 up to 723. So some missing data there, but we don't see any CMEs directed toward Earth. Let's play those through. No apparent earthly directed coronal mass ejections. Aw, shucks. We were hoping some plasma would be headed Earth's way. And if you're frightened of the sun and you think it's going to kill you, newsflash, the sun's not going to kill you. Terrible decisions by humans might kill you, but the sun's not going to. So again, we've got quite a few filaments here in the southern hemisphere especially. This one up here in the north. And this one over here, this prominence, is in the process of ejecting from the corona right now. Again, lots of filaments in the southern hemisphere. Those could produce some earthly directed coronal mass ejections. And here you can see this CME happening as we stream the video. So great imagery there from the GOES 16 SUVI. We'll zoom out so you can see the time and date stamps briefly. That's the last about 2.5 hours here. That's from about 7 o'clock Universal Time to about 10 o'clock Universal Time. So the last about 3 hours in ionized helium. Again, we don't expect that to be earthly directed as it's so far up in the northeastern limb. In fact, it's really coming from behind the limb a little bit. So here's the last 24 hours in 171 angstroms. Again, as we show the most detailed imagery you'll find any place on the closest star. Thanks for stargazing with us. As we get into our bonus features segment, we've got an electron storm going as well. We've got some major charging hazards here. So these are internal charging hazards. Electrons building up inside of satellites. Not the best scenario. Those are high energy electrons. We've also got some low energy surface charging hazards here around Mexico moving into the Central Pacific. These, especially these internal charging hazards, these could cause some communications breakdowns of satellite-based communications. You may see weather satellites showing some bad data and things like that because of the electron storm that's going on. So we've got very high levels of electron flux here. These are the GOES 16 and 17 readings. And NOAA expecting this to continue. So here's the forecast. NOAA expecting to see continued high levels of electron flux, and I would tend to agree, as we've been having such a high-speed coronal hole wind stream for such an extended period of time. There's the one-year chart to put it in context. That's from solon.info if you're wondering. solon.info/solar. You can find all that data. And let's take a look at the FI ionosphere layer. Located at about 300 kilometers of altitude, it's the bridge between Earth and space. Keep in mind the molecules are very diffuse up there, folks. 300 kilometers of altitude basically is space. You won't be able to breathe at those altitudes. In fact, you could barely breathe atop Mount Everest at, 29,000 feet of altitude? We're talking about 300 kilometers of altitude. Anyway, those are the vibrational frequencies of that portion of the planet. And here's the anomalygram to put that in context a little bit. That is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. And we're going to see increased geomagnetic activity here, folks, because keep in mind September is the most geomagnetically active month of the year. So there is the 10 o'clock Universal Time ionogram, and there's 10 o'clock Universal Time anomalygram. And we'll also show the total electron content forecast, which will show all of the free electrons in between your GPS satellite and your GPS handset. That satellite located about 12,500 miles of altitude. It's way up there on the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt. Distance is shown here in miles. So here's the total electron content forecast. Let's bring that back. We'll let it play through twice. And as we typically see with very high levels of electron flux, the electrons are fairly constrained here. You'll see the highest total electron contents here constrained to the equator around noontime. And those are the most likely spots to see large GPS errors. Yeah, your GPS actually kind of works as an electron counter in many ways, because free electrons will refract the signal. So here's our latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. Do we have a new sunspot in the southeast? Doesn't look like it, but we do have some magnetic complexity down there. So a bunch of new sunspots here. I'm not going to try to name them or keep track of them all, but certainly this sunspot up here in the north, that definitely gained some complexity. This one just spontaneously grew in the past 24 hours, and those features significantly increase the likelihood of solar flares. And let's bring up a composite here. This is Iron Star. 3 different species of ionized iron from SDO. 335, 133, 193, and 94 angstroms. And that is where our video on space will end. And now it's time to do meteorology segment and chew bubblegum. And we're all out of bubblegum. So what we're looking at here are sea surface temperature anomaly and ocean currents. Why? Because we want to look at the Gulf Stream. So we've got a lot of hot water here in the North Atlantic. A little bit of cold water mixed in as well. And incidentally, the Gulf Stream is still making it to Ireland. So for everybody out there who was expecting a year without a summer in Europe, leave us a comment if you're viewing the video from Europe. Did you have a year without a summer this year? Did it stay cold all year in Europe? Did you see frost in June? Well, certainly not. The Gulf Stream not shutting down. And there are the currents to prove it. You can see currents making it up here to Ireland, and the water is quite warm. So the Gulf Stream largely responsible for heating up the northern hemisphere in many ways, still completely intact. Again, that's currents and sea surface temperature anomaly. And let's get to our regularly scheduled surface winds and jet stream report. So here are the surface winds of the eastern world. Shout out to our viewers from this side of the planet. Here are the jet streams of the east. We've got a high pressure here over China, okay? China. You've got an anticyclone here rotating clockwise over China, likely producing clear skies. Okay. Backward jet stream over the Indian Ocean, blowing east to west instead of the normal mode. Next, we've got some cold air being injected into the mid-Atlantic states and into the northeast. Some Canadian Great Lakes air here, headed down to places like Pennsylvania. We're located in Lehigh Valley, if you're wondering. Anyway, those are the jet streams of the west, the Americas. Strong anticyclone here in the northern Atlantic, as well as over northwestern South America. You can see that counterclockwise rotation there, the sign of an anticyclone in the southern hemisphere. Here are the surface winds of the Americas. Some strong winds down here in the Southern Ocean, west of the Drake Passage. Here are the surface winds of the Central World, Europe, Africa, the Middle East. And last but not least, the jet streams. Again, jet stream blowing backward over the northern Indian Ocean and northern Africa. Here's your weather.gov map, and again, fortunately, the flooding has stopped in eastern Kentucky. We hope things are drying out there. But we do have some flooding, some flood watches here in Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, and eastern California. If your county's lit, head to weather.gov and click your county, weather.gov. And some gale watches there around, gale warnings there around Hawaii and Alaska. Here's your total accumulated precipitation forecast based on the GFS model. Arizona going to see some heavy rains there. As much as like 3.5, maybe 4 inches of rain there forecasted for isolated portions of eastern Arizona. Heavy rains up Mexico as well. And we'll also show the temperature anomaly forecast since we've got some cold air being injected into the northeast. That's temperature anomaly in Celsius degrees based on the GFS model for the next 72 hours. Some pockets of cold air showing up there in the Rockies, and some hot air there moving into the central U.S. Some mixed temperature anomalies in North Dakota. Again, 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. And here is a pressure map from windy.com. If you don't have the mobile app, perhaps consider installing that. It's splentacular. And we've got a low pressure system here around the Dakotan border there, around the north-south Dakota border. A low pressure there showing up. And here are the teeth of the storms over the past about 10 hours, the NASA GOES lightning mapper. Quite a bit of lightning there in the northern Rockies. Also, South Texas seeing some strong lightning signals. Here's a real-time lightning map. Do we have any terrestrial strikes? Well, it looks like we do. Raleigh's got a small cell to its south. Fort Bragg. There's thunder rolling in. No, it's not a directed energy weapon. Some heavy lightning there over the central Mediterranean. Next, we've got your U.S. Doppler Radar map. We've also got the shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. And as always, the water vapor map. You can see that cold air being injected down from the Great Lakes down into the mid-Atlantic states and the Northeast. It's going to get a little cooler here in Pennsylvania. And again, if you're wondering where we're located right about here in Lehigh Valley. Let's go back to your recap. There's the Doppler radar for the lower 48. Some rain showers there around the Gulf states. And Wisconsin. There's some rain moving in there. Some stronger storms there northwest of Minneapolis. There's shortwave radiation, 3.9 nanometers satellite showing clouds and fog. Some fog rolling into Missouri. And there's the water vapor map. That's what we recommend you use if your Doppler radar is not giving you an indication of how systems will move. The water vapor map will make things clear. We hope we made things clear about space and Earth weather today. Once again, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.